So let's talk about, first and foremost, what exactly the new rules are, who they apply to, and why now.
So starting this week, all residential buildings of 1 to 9 units, that's everything from the single family home up to the 9-unit brownstone, have to place their trash out for pickup in containers rather than in bags directly on the curbs.
So what does that mean for the actual owner of the apartment in the residential building or the renter? Are they just still throwing their trash down the chute and it's the landlord who's responsible for putting it in the bin?
Yeah, so every building is different and it depends on who puts the trash out. But the requirement is on the property owner, so the individual tenant won't get fined or summoned, and the property owner has to ensure that the trash goes out in a container rather than in bags directly on the streets. And obviously, this is part of our war on rats.
Yes.
We hate rats in this administration, and we know that the single best thing we can do as part of that war on rats is get the rat food off the streets.
So let me ask, you brought up the rats, so let's go there for a second, because this already was in effect for businesses and restaurants and things like that, right? With that being containerized, have you been able to measure a decrease in the rat population, and how are you looking at that in terms of metrics?
So let me give you a great piece of data. We did a pilot of residential containerization of trash on 10 blocks in West Harlem. Happens to be a rat mitigation zone where the rat problems historically have been profound. And over the course of 1 year on those 10 blocks, we saw a 60% decrease in rat sightings through 311 on those 10 blocks.
How are you measuring that? Just calls to 311?
Calls to 311, compared to the rest of the district, which remained flat. And so we know that containerization of trash, getting the rat food off the streets, is a strategy that is big and works. So
do you believe it's truly a less rat populated street, or is it just that people aren't picking up the phone and calling 311?
Oh no, without any doubt. It is a less rat populated street. If you speak to the tenants or the homeowners on those streets, they will tell you that they see fewer rats on the street.
I guess that, if we could just go way back for a second, this may sound like a silly question, but why did it take so long for the city to actually containerize trash?
It's been 50 years. Since we last had residential container mandates in New York City. And I think my best answer to that is it really took Mayor Adams, who had the political will to do it. It's hard to ask every residents and every business in the city to change the way they do something 2 or 3 times a week. And he really believed in it. He believes in bringing dignity and order back to every street, every borough, every neighborhood in this city. And this trash revolution, as we call it, is a big part of that effort.
So by June of 2026, correct me if I'm wrong here, all small building property owners will be required to have that official New York City bin, right? Those are $45. So they have to buy it.
They have to buy it.
Is there a reason why it can't be provided free to some of these buildings and why they have to actually purchase it?
Yeah, so let's put this in context. Many of those businesses, I'd like to say most, already use containers. If you go to parts of Staten Island, parts of Eastern Queens, where there are lots of single-family homes, most single-family homeowners in New York City already put their trash out in containers. So it is a standard thing you see in cities and, in fact, in big parts of New York City. We also worked really hard to make sure that the bins would be affordable for New Yorkers. So if you go to a Home Depot or any other hardware store, this bin is the cheapest bin of its quality on the market by far. It's about half the price of a standard bin that you could otherwise buy.
So for those, again, for those who may not be able to afford the bin, who say, well, I can't afford it, I have the one already, can I just keep this one? Are they going to be fined?
So this is a requirement of all residences and all businesses. And importantly, this is a requirement for the property owner, not for the individual tenant. If you look at, for example, a 9-unit building, they probably need about 2 pails. Whoever owns that 9-unit property will be responsible for providing the pails to the tenants. And also, I'd say this is something that is standard around the world. New York City is not going to be the first city to put our trash in containers. In fact, we are going to be the last.
Right, exactly. So are the rules for those smaller buildings the same as the rules for larger buildings and the businesses?
So the rules for the small buildings and the businesses are very similar. And that is, you got to put your trash in a container. For larger buildings, those small wheelie bins that we're using for smaller buildings, they're just too small for those big mounds of trash. And so for the larger buildings, we're doing a different solution. We're putting these fixed on-street containers like you see in parts of Europe, parts of South America, parts of Asia, in the parking lane. And we're starting, they're 4 cubic yards, and they're hoisted by a special fleet of trucks. We're starting with our first district this spring in May of next year. And that will be in West Harlem, in Manhattan Community Board 9. And I want to be clear, we are going after 100% of the trash. As of now, over the last year, 70% of the trash in New York City has come under container mandate.
Okay, and recycling, is that part of this?
No, recycling is not part of it. And we wanted to be really thoughtful. First, we wanted to keep the costs down for New Yorkers, so they have to buy fewer pails.
Okay.
Second, we figured recycling is something that goes out once a week, and it tends to be the less gross stuff, the stuff that doesn't really attract the rats, the metal, glass, plastic, and the paper, cardboard. And so this is specifically, these mandates are specifically focused on trash and obviously also compost.
Now, just to go back to something you said a second ago, the bins are going to be placed in lanes. Is that going to take away parking? Because then that's going to be a whole other conversation.
The large bins for the larger buildings of 30 units and up will be placed in the parking lane. We did an environmental study of Manhattan 9, because that's where we're starting in the spring. And we found that it takes up about 2 to 3% of parking, these large on-street containers.
So those communities will lose 3 parking spots?
Will lose about 3% of their parking.
Okay, and have you heard about that? Are people upset about it?
Oh, we go to community board meetings. We are being as transparent as possible with communities as we roll out these container mandates. But that's another reason why we decided to use the individual bins, both for the businesses and the smaller buildings. Takes up less parking.
Okay. Do you ever get tired of talking trash?
I love talking trash.
Okay.
I could talk trash with you all day.
All right. The rats are one thing. Can we go after cockroaches next? That's a different
next time I'm on.
Different conversation, for they survive anything. Jessica Tisch, great to have you here, Commissioner. Thank you so much.